Welcome back to Les Schwab Tire Center's Outdoor GPS, presented by Fisherman's Marine and Outdoor. Now it's time for your weekend tech tip, brought to you by Chevy Silverado.
Welcome back, everyone. Now, quickly, we had a question that came in just a day or two ago. Individuals going fishing tomorrow and wants me to reiterate how I like to run my beads, because it is a little bit different than some. Not from all, by a long shot, but then some, okay? And Pat, you're going to learn something too, so come here. He was telling me that he mostly fishes hard beads, which I do too, and I've talked about that before. My preferred way to fish a bead is with a hard bead. Now, that being said, last year was one of my best years with soft beads that I've ever had, and that's because of that 20 mil bead that has become so darn popular for very good reasons. But again, 90% of the time, I've got a hard bead on. And the question was, because I've talked about how I like to do it, this is one of the old school, the oldest ways to peg a bead. It goes all the way back to the trout fishermen up in Alaska, where this fishing technique comes from, to keep this legit. I know there's a lot of people around here like to say that they're the ones that came up with it, but that's a whole other story. So it all comes out of Canada and Alaska for bead fly anglers that are using indicators. And they will take and triple wrap their bead, okay? That literally means, and we got that Kershaw Tech Cam on, that literally means you're taking your leader and you're running it through the hard bead 3 different times. Yes, I realize that it's wrapped around it, okay? And Pat, first thing he said was, well, doesn't that mean that it'll break right there at the bead? I've literally caught hundreds, okay, of steelhead with a bead rigged just like this, okay? Just like that. I have never had one break off because it was wrapped around the bead. Now, I've broke them off because I didn't replace or change it out after hooking a fish, which is a mistake, because a lot of times we're using pretty light leaders these days. Even if I'm using 15-pound leader, I'm wrapping it 3 times around. After a fish is landed, it's removed and replaced. It's just that simple. And if you've been fishing it a bunch and it's been bouncing around the bottom a lot, yes, I will swap it out because gear gets beat up. I want to make sure that my leaders are good to go at all times. So it's a good reason why that you're going to go through some leaders to make sure that you're good to go when and if you get hooked up. But to answer that specific question was that triple wrap. It's once through, 2 more times, pegged. It is not going to slide. It's not going to move, period. Now, there's a number of reasons why, and I've talked about it over the years, specifically in a jet boat. I'm the one with my hand on the tiller, and if I'm free drifting and my bead constantly is getting slid down to the hook, that is no fun for the guy running the boat, because it's not easy for me just to reach around and grab that thing and slide it back up the leader. It's extremely annoying, and that's, again, the reason why I fell in love with that technique specifically, because that bead will not move. It is simply not going to move. But for those that can't do that or want to fish a soft bead, here's another way that you can do it. Soft bead, you got to have a threader. Lots of beads out there do not have holes. B&R has a hole through it. The arrow baits does not, so you have to thread that thing through. So you can use any kind of threader that you want. This just happens to be one that comes from Oregon Tackle. Doug, thank you for that. So that you can get that soft bead on, but then it's just a loop knot down here to a 6mm bead to stop it, okay? So that bead is not going over that knot, the little bead that is. And then, of course, the soft bead is not going over that little bead. Now, it's a little bit small of a soft bead to be running with a 6mm. I might even go down to a 5. Either way, it's not going over that knot. So it's pegged. It's not going to move. Now, the other way to do that, and I've really fallen in love with this, is from my buddy Fish Killer Freddie, is to do the same wrap with this bead 3 times and then slide the soft bead on top of it. That is my preferred way to run a soft bead. It will not move. Extremely important. Have I elaborated on that yet? You do not want the bead to move. So there's 2 different ways to do that one. And then, of course, Brandon over at B&R, let alone being an engineer, is a genius, for crying out loud, is the T-stop that he came up with a few years ago. Very, very popular. You don't have to use a loop knot. I do still use the loop knot with that T-stop so that it will not slide at all. Because a lot of times, like this particular one, is 8-pound fluorocarbon. Okay, 8-pound fluorocarbon is super thin, and these T-stops will still slide pretty easily on that 8-pound fluoro. So with that loop nut down there, it's not going to go anywhere. So to answer that question, I know you're watching. I hope it helps. If it's a hard bead, triple wrap it, call it good. If it's a soft bead, triple wrap a 6 or a 5 mil bead, slide your bead right down on top of it, 14 mil and bigger. Those are the beads that I like anyway. And that is, by all means, the easiest way, at least that I've come up with or seen and prefer to fish. So again, hopefully it helps you out. Hopefully it helps you.
Yeah.
Okay, did you learn something?
Yeah, I'll stop pulling the rubber bands through them.
Please stop doing that. Don't do that. It worked back in the day. I mean, that's how it was done up in Alaska. First time I ever saw this were guys with 5 weights and an indicator, and they were fishing beads. I'm like, what? I mean, they're catching trout. We're salmon fishing, but that's the first time that I saw bead fishing 100 years ago, and they were sliding those rubber bands through there. Well, it's changed since then, I promise. Well, let's talk about that. It's steelhead season, right? Yeah. One of the things, and I'm not going to say that it's a niche for you, but you sell drift boats. You sell Willie drift boats.
Willie drift boats.
Like literally one of the original designers of drift boats, like from day one. Maybe Mackenzie boats were around a little bit before that?
I mean, Alumaweld boats were Willie drift boats.
Back in the 80s.
Yeah.
That's a long story. God, I'd love to get into that story. But yeah, so you sell drift boats too?
Yes.
Keep a decent inventory?
Yeah, we've been able, that's the one thing. I mean, during the pandemic, our custom boats, we were out, 2 to 3 years even on orders.
Yeah.
And it's got caught up quite a bit. So, but all along, we've always usually been able to get drift boats. And we have a couple in stock. I have 2 more in production right now, and a couple more right after that.
One of them is mine.
Yes.
Stay away from that one. Yeah. I'd recommend if you're in the drift boat market, go look at that blue one.
Yes. Yeah,
that was so tempting.
That one will be at the boat show.
It is incredible.
Nice yeah.
I mean, incredible what they can do to a drift boat these days.
Yeah, there's so many options, but you can still get an affordable kind of boat. It's tough. Drift boats used to be brand new, under 10 grand, and it's
good luck.
Yeah, it's
good luck. Good luck.
Not doable. We're not far off.
Custom jet boats used to be affordable too.
Yeah.
They're still affordable, but you just better be prepared. Yeah. You better be realistic. Is another way to think about it, which is another reason why the used side that you have is definitely an advantage.
One cool new thing with they've changed from using the UHMW bottoms to a product called Wetlander. Yeah. And that's pretty cool. I've had a couple guys put that on their sleds.
Really?
And one of the guys that runs the Deschutes all the time, a good customer of ours, and he loves it.
Really?
It slides. I mean, you got to be careful and make sure your boat's hooked when you're pulling it up, because it slide right back off the trailer. But
even on the bank, I've known boats that had UHMW on the bottom of their sleds, and they pulled up on the bank, and they turn around and it's gone. So keep that in mind if you do that.
Yeah, but that Wetlander product is a real hard polymer, and it's replacing the UHMW. I mean, you can still get UHMW on some boats, but it's adhering the UHMW to aluminum as a whole. One of the glues that Willie used to use, they can't get it anymore, so that was the option.
I always hated it. At least I've never owned a boat with any of that on there, but my buddies that have had it had nothing but issues. And they're usually fixable, but still, you don't want to have issues. It's just something that you just don't want to have to deal with.
Or even the coat it bottom, which is a similar product to glove it. You just have to redo it every couple of years. But
if you beat it up
on aluminum drift boats, it's really nice to have something slick on the bottom.
Oh, agreed. Yeah. You don't want to tear it up if you don't have to.
Yep.
All right. Well, then let's even go to the next step. I mean, custom boats, right? Willie sleds. One of the original boat. I've had a few of them. It seems like over the years. You're building, or you're selling Willie. You're one of the few dealers for Willie here, especially here in the Portland, Vancouver area.
Yeah, we can definitely help you along. We've been selling them for quite a few years now, and can really help someone that wants to step up to a custom boat like that, make sure it gets ordered correctly with the right options, and and then just go over all the options, because there's a lot of options that you may not see. But Willie is one of the few still that will do custom builds, and they really have some of the top you know, welders down there that have been there a long time building these custom boats. So you're going to see just, you know, what they call a stack of dimes on the welds. They're just impeccable craftsmen down there. They're just right down to the drains for the deck and under the rod lockers and everything is just well thought out on one of those.
And if you've never gone through that process, you've always wanted to go through that process, it's a process. You need to go to somebody that's going to be able to help you out the right way.
We usually have, even when we were out of stock, we usually have a few going through, or even a couple of used ones we can go over at the shop. But right now we do actually have a couple of sleds. We have a 20-foot Fusion with a VMAX SHO with a jet on it, tiller. That's a really nice 20-foot boat, perfect Clackamas River boat.
Yeah. And it is something, once you do that, and I've done it many times in my lifetime now, building custom boats, it's always a challenge on every single one of them. Someday I'll get it right. But if you go to the right place, they can walk you through that process and get everything in the boat that you need to get done. It's not just walk in, there's one, and go, well, I'll take that off the shelf boat. Okay, when you're talking about custom, it's very, very different. All right, we're going to cut to a break. When we come back, we're going to continue to talk with Pat, give you a couple of ideas of what's going on at the Deal of the Week, and give you a reason or two to go see Pat over at the boat show. We'll be back in just a minute.
Outdoor GPS is brought to you by Yakima Bait, steeped in tradition, innovation, and fishing success. Procure Bait Sense, ruthlessly effective. And by North American Metals Incorporated, first choice for all your metal roofing and siding needs.